We are back in my drought tolerant garden, and today we are going to be planting some succulents in a retaining wall. Over here on this side of this retaining wall is this little nook, and I had some plants planted. I had some little ice plants there about a year ago, and the gophers completely went to town on them. It's not a big space, but we have filled in all those areas with gopher wire and put back the soil that was in there. I'm now going to plant it up with plants that don't require much, if any, irrigation. So I'm going to go around and pick out a selection of succulents from my collection that I will snip and put in there. So this very messy space is my propagation station, where I have taken lots and lots of plants and tried to propagate them, whether from leaf or from cuttings that I have found. So from here, this gives me great options when I do have a space, such as that wall garden, to go and try to plant some new stuff. One of the things I love about succulents is they propagate endlessly. So I call this, to some people, my dead garden. These are, succulents that I had trimmed back and just had space to keep the stems, and sure enough, new baby plants come out of them. It doesn't always work, and I'm lucky enough to be in a climate where I can just set these outside. I can more or less ignore them a lot of the time. They are in indirect light, which is why a lot of these have lost their color and they're green. But for instance, once these get in the sunshine, they will turn bright orange again. So in here, I have a bunch of aeoniums and are they Echeveria or Graptopalatum? Fred Ives, they're called. They have a really lovely kind of purple color. They go very green if they're in the shade like this one, but they do get quite big. So I do like those. I have a bunch of those. Some I grew from leaf cuttings, some from other pieces. This is a great example. You can see where this was a stem that I cut for another piece. I left the stem in this flower pot of soil with lots of other things, and we got lots and lots of little babies from there. So I think I'm going to finally pull that out. Here's a few more examples of the same kind of propagation method, and I think I'm going to pull those out and put those in that succulent bed. Here's another of my propagation station. These aeoniums, I put them in this skeleton vase and have not watered it in a long time, but they're still pretty happy. I think it's time for them to go to their new location, and they will turn really dark red when they get direct sunlight. All over my house, I just have these flower pots that when I find little clippings, I just stick them in there and they start to grow. And sometimes, like this one, is very shaded, so everything is very leggy. So I'm gonna go ahead and not feel too bad about pulling out some of these plants. I mean, that is really ready to go somewhere else. You can see it's even got roots coming out. There's a few more in here. These, I might leave those. Let's see, there's some more Fred Ives. They're kind of tiny. I might let them grow a bit bigger. I've got a collection of sedum jelly beans, and they're getting real long because they're not getting a lot of direct sunlight, or they're getting no direct sunlight. So I think I'm gonna pick out a few of those, and then these, I think these are also sedums as well. As I mentioned, they will turn bright red orange in the direct sun. Here we go. Let's just pull them out, see what happens. This will also give me a lot more room to put more propagations in. So it's great. Let's grab some jelly beans. I'm taking these ones from the back because they're not getting a lot of, looks like we'll take this all. You can see where these came from. That was just a little cut stem. Popped it in the soil, and we got two nice big succulents out of it. So we'll bring that. We'll just get all these together because they seem to want to come. One thing to note is I knocked off a few leaves while I was getting things out of here. I'm gonna just leave them in there. They will grow new plants. They will start to root and new plants will come out of there. Here we go. Okay, that's a pretty decent selection so far. I'm gonna fill this back in with soil and maybe bring this long one too. There we go. Those will go good. I'm gonna fill that bit back in with soil, and I actually have a ton of leaf cuttings that I just set aside here, and you'll see they just start to grow little pups, so I do need to find space for them, so perfect spot. Now I've opened up that other location. I'm also going to, I have a lot of these Crassula Gollum, also known as Shrek ears, as you can understand why. I think that'll be kind of cute too. They're just resting in here. I think they'll make a nice addition. I also like these Aeonium kiwis. They get this kind of cool, I don't know, is it variegation? I'm gonna pull those out. So I think they will look quite nice. And finally, I'm gonna pick out which Fred Ives. I'm going to use that one, has a lot. Let's see these ones. I'm gonna go for this one. I'm just gonna look at that. So I can pull each one of those off and plant them separately. So I pulled out this Fred Ives, but it has a lot of little babies. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna snip the bigger ones like this and put this back because it's obviously pretty happy there and I wanna get some more plants out of it. I have a feeling that if I put those little baby ones in the soil in the new area, it'll just have a little bit too much direct sunlight. It might just be a bit too harsh. So here's a big collection of things I've just pulled out of my own propagation area. And the space is not even that big, so we may be putting some of these back. So I do want to make a kind of a combo of texture and color. So we've got these kind of purple, pinky Fred Ives. These Aeonium kiwis get kind of pink. I have some other Aeoniums that'll go dark red. These are another kind of jelly bean that they've been in the shade, so they're a bit green now, but they go bright red. And then I also have these. Here's the sedum, same kind of sedum, but I'm going to maybe chop up some of this because this is just not looking great anyways. So I think cutting that up, it'll make a nice combo of textures and colors. So I've kind of gone and laid out a basic plan for what I want here because I want to check what height and color mixtures I'm going to do. And now I'm going to start planting them in and we'll see how they start to shape up. I might make changes or I might keep them the same. We'll see. So I have got everything in and they look kind of sparse, but they are gonna get much bigger, especially these Fred Ives. They're gonna get really big. And possibly these Crassula Gollums. So to finish it off, I have this tray of sedum that's kind of like a mixed tray, and I'm gonna snip it apart. It comes like almost like a carpet. I bought the same stuff and put a little bit there and it's just gone crazy. You can see one variety of sedum is really happy. So I'm just gonna finish this off like that. Some of these you just kind of break, you can just throw them in, but I'm going to, it's the best way to do this. I'm just gonna cut it apart. I like these kind of trailing ones. I think those will be particularly good for this section. So, and you know, if they rip, it's okay because again, they just like root so easily. So I'm not gonna sweat it too much. I love these. They look like they're straight out of a fairy port. Some of these, take them. You can even see where they're rooting. Just stick them there and they'll start to do a nice job of sort of spilling over. Okay, it's starting to get dark, so I'm gonna call it a day, but this is what I have done so far. Still a little fine-tuning to do, and I have all these to propagate in my propagation station. But yeah, just trying to fill it in a bit without being too overstuffed, knowing everything is gonna grow bigger.
3 weeks later.
Here's a quick look at the plants a month later in March. You can see they've rooted. They still haven't fully grown in. And here they are another month or two later, really starting to fill in.
Many months later.
And now here it is. It is the end of July, and here is my succulent wall. Everything has fully filled in and changed color because it does get a good bit of direct sunlight. There were a couple of casualties when I first put it in. Some of these sedums weren't quite used to the direct sunlight that this spot gets, but they survived and grew some nice new leaves. I think when these sedums were first planted, they were very green, and now they're nice, beautiful orange color. This is the copper tone sedum. This is California Sunset. I think that's a Grapto sedum. This is Grapto Fred Ives. There is the Crassula variegated. Because again, this gets a lot of direct sunlight. You can kind of see it's gone very white colored. Some of these ghosties in here, the Aeonium kiwis. Overall, this is pretty maintenance free. And some of these little sedums, they are really filled in. Some I've kind of replanted. They weren't super happy here. And there's some places where it's kind of getting a little bit overgrown. I like that look, but in some places I might trim it back to be a little less overgrown looking. You can see they've kind of taken over where these little ghosties are. But I do think it kind of softens this really, otherwise what is a hardscape. And I'm really happy with the way this looks. We haven't had any gopher damage, which is great. That was a big concern. I previously had other plants in here that were completely decimated from the gophers, even though it's just a teeny tiny space. You know, they're relentless here. And I think the mix of colors from the bright oranges to the purples to the yellows and the greens is really nice. So this is a nice way to fill in what was more or less a throwaway space in my garden in a drought tolerant way without the need for flowers or fertilization. To achieve these kind of colors, direct sunlight is necessary, and I think the heat from these bricks also adds the kind of stress, the good stress that these succulents require in order to turn these vibrant colors. And that is it. Hopefully you've enjoyed watching me transform this space with succulents, and hopefully it's inspired you to do something similar. I'm always open to questions and comments and can help wherever I can. I'm not a plant expert, but I just do love creating these kind of spaces. You can always check me out on my other social media channels on TikTok and Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching.